Hi guys, how are you doing? Today I want to make a video that just kind of explains why I quit giving money to the church. There's a lot of churches that preach that, if you don't give to them, okay, then you're under a curse, or if you don't support whatever they're doing, then God's not going to bless you. And it's all a bunch of crock, okay? It's crock. It's manipulation. It's spiritual witchcraft is what it is. Guys, I want you to be aware that one thing that the Bible teaches is the priesthood of all believers. That means if you're a believer, okay, then you're just as important as the man standing on the pulpit. Okay, you're just as important. You're no less. You're no less than anyone who has a position of leadership, okay? Because the other day I kind of had a revelation. It was whenever Jesus was feeding the 5,000. Jesus didn't pass around an offering plate and tell them that they were going to be blessed if the crowd gave to him. What Jesus did is he took what little bit he was given and he distributed, and there was more enough to go around. So guys, a true shepherd is going to be feeding the flock and trusting God for provision. And these days what we see is the flock feeding the shepherd. In a lot of cases anyhow. But guys, one thing that I noticed is that if this priesthood of all believers is true, which I believe it is, then I have just as much authority to preach the gospel as anyone else. I have just as much. God said he is no respecter of persons. And I finally figured out that instead of paying my money into a church, then I could just give to the community. And I could just give to invest in people's lives, because church is not a building, okay? The Bible says that church is the ecclesia, which is those who are called out. And whenever we support those around us, whenever we see our brother in need, the Bible says that whenever we see our brother in need and we do not help him, then we don't have the love of God in us. If we see someone in need and we don't help them, then how can we have the love of God in us? And I think when we get entrapped into the idea that we have to pay into a church, like to a building, then we completely miss the whole idea. And a lot of us feel like it's, we've done our duty to God and that we don't have to help our brother in need. As long as we're helping our church, we don't have to help our brothers. We feel like, because we've kept the lights on for a pastor to deliver a sermon, then we don't have to help anyone else. We feel like. But the thing is, guys, is people are leaving the institutional church in droves. Over 60,000 or 600,000. I don't know what the statistics are, but there's a huge number of people leaving the institutionalized churches. And I think that people are just seeing problems with it. And just trying, finally figuring out that there's not a whole lot of spiritual transformation going on there. And I'm not saying that, it's not the people and a lot of the pastors that are. I know that there's a lot of good pastors. It's just the whole system is messed up. We've fallen for so many lies. But the other day I was reading a book by K.P. Yohanan called Revolution in World Missions, and K.P. was talking about how his first trip to America. He came to America and noticed the billions of dollars we pour into entertainment, into our buildings, into our bookstores, and into entertainment for the saints, basically is what he called it. And how the people in his nation were struggling, they were hungry, the missionaries were living like paupers. the people were and most of the people had never even heard the good news preached even one time. Not even once. And guys, and so often we just get so brainwashed into thinking that if we're not paying our tithe into a church, then, we're robbing God. But it's absolute bull, okay? It's bull. When we're robbing God by not supporting missionaries, we're robbing God by not spreading the good news and supporting shepherds that are doing the real work. We rob God when we don't help our brother in need. We rob God whenever we see someone in need and we just ignore them. We rob God every time we pass up a homeless person without offering them some food or something to drink. And I've been guilty of that. We rob God whenever we give money to men that are just soaking it up from the flock. That's robbing God. You want to talk about robbing God? That is robbing God. It's spiritual witchcraft, okay? I've heard so many people tell me that they pay their tithe to their church because they have been financially blessed because of it. But whenever we say that, we don't realize that, is it really about our blessing? What happened to blessing other people? Why isn't that a blessing in itself? What happened to the idea of sharing what we have? What happened to the idea of, when we take what little bit we have and we share it with others, then God supernaturally provides for us? What about that idea? But instead, people are tithing because they believe that, it's the key to unlock their financial blessing. But what they're really doing is perpetuating a system that should have never been there in the first place. I read a book online called The Great Ecclesiastical Conspiracy, and it talks about how parts of the king actually changed certain words in the Bible to mean something completely different in order to maintain a ruling class of people, okay? In order to maintain a hierarchical system. But the Bible presents a vertical system of leadership where people are helping each other out and serving one another rather than one person ruling over the masses. And even if you look at the life of Jesus, you can clearly see that he never ruled over anybody. He served. And that's not what we're seeing today. And I guess I'll just rant this as many times as I need to get it across. And once again, guys, I don't claim to be God. But I see that there's a great problem. And I see that the world sees it. The other day I was just Googling. I was on Google. And I had watched a video called Gods of the New Age, and what this video showed was how people would sell everything they had to give to these gurus, okay? And these gurus, Middle Eastern gurus or New Age gurus, they would shun materialism with their lips, but they would live lavishly, and the people were just selling everything they had and doing whatever they could do to give to the gurus. And it reminded me of the way a lot of Christians are doing things. We're being manipulated to give to these men in prominent positions. They're living like kings, and a lot of us are suffering. A lot of the people on the pews are suffering, and we're just given to these guys, these preachers, pastors, or whatever you want to call them, like they're kings. So the other day I was just going to compare I was writing a blog, and I was going to pull up a mansion of a guru and a mansion of a televangelist and show how there's no difference, how we're not supposed to look like the world. But anyway, I clicked on a picture, And it actually led me to some kind of Islamist site. And they were basically making fun of the Christians, is what they were doing, because they saw that they were making fun of the mansions of these televangelists because they see a problem with it. And I'm like, if we look like the world, no one is ever going to want to come to Christianity. If we look just like everybody else. The Bible says that God's power is made perfect in our weakness. And whenever we're living like kings, we're not showing any signs of weakness or any signs of humility or any signs of... That's not a sign of God's power. That's the sign of the world looking just like the world. That's the world doing what it does, exploiting people, taking advantage of people, and living off the fat of the sheep. That's the world. But anyhow, guys, that's my rant for the day. I know a lot of people have heard this many times, and I hope I contributed something new in there. But I hope you guys have a good day. All right, thanks.